So what's up y'all? Welcome to this week's video. Currently I'm in Tokyo just for a little update, and I'm just doing some photography and really just taking advantage of the hydrangea or the ajisai season in Japan. It's humid as hell right now and arguably the worst time to be in Asia, but at this point I'm pretty used to it and I came pretty prepared for what that might bring. But with that comes the excitement of summer in Japan and all the great things to come, such as festival season and fireworks season and so on and so forth. So I'm definitely hyped up for that. Anyways, in this week's video, I want to discuss a bit of some of the things I like to do in my photography, including something that I've recently tried to incorporate more into my photos. I've recently come off a bit of a break from photography, since I was feeling a bit burnt out and honestly just quite bored, to be honest with you. So this let me reflect a bit and look back at some of my old photos, as well as some of my new ones that I've taken since my time in Tokyo. So with that, before I start rambling on, let's jump right in and discuss some of the compositional stuff or things I like to do in my photos. So with this first compositional point that I want to talk about and discuss is just introducing foreground. So I like using foreground in my pictures a lot, and there are a couple of reasons why. So the number one reason why I like using foreground is because that it adds depth to an image. We see the world in 3D, so we kind of take that for granted as humans, but when taking photos with a camera, it gets shown as 2D or it gets flat. There are many ways to get that 3D-ness aspect back into your photos though, and one way of doing that is using foreground to your advantage. So using this picture that I took at Shinjuku as an example for foreground, you can really see the different layers of this picture. You can see the background right here, the Shinjuku station. You can see the midground, the road in between the foreground, which I'll talk about later, and the background. And then again, the foreground that is the main purpose of this point, this topic of this first point that I want to make. The people right here waiting for the light, and you can really distinguish the different layers of the picture, and that kind of gives that 3D-ness aspect to this photo. So the second photo that I want to discuss when talking about foreground is this picture that I took in Osaka right here. So with this picture, you can see the background right here, the buildings all the way in the back. You can see the foreground with this couple right here standing on this bridge, and then the midground, aka this kind of other bridge walking area that's leading towards the background. And because this picture was taken in a different angle compared to that Shinjuku shot, you can really see that midground lead to that background, and that really adds to that 3D-ness aspect that I was talking about earlier. Another reason why I like using foreground is that you're able to also add an additional story element into your photos. So with this Shinjuku picture right here, I'm able to show the people just waiting for the light at this crosswalk. With that Osaka picture, you're able to get that human element in the photo. Them looking at the mass crowd, them being this couple right here in the foreground, looking at the mass crowd within this spot in Osaka. Without this couple right here in this Osaka picture, or the people waiting for the stoplight in the Shinjuku picture, these photos would be kind of bland in my opinion. I don't think they'd be bad pictures at all. I just think this human element, especially in this Osaka picture, lets us really relate to the picture more and feel like we're actively in the photo because, we're humans. So this is the second compositional thing, or technique, however you want to call it, that I like to use in my photos, and that I'm actually trying to actively do more because I didn't do this a lot when I first started photography, and this is something that I kind of made it a key point to get better at, and that is isolating or showing details in a scene. So for me, especially since I focus so much on trying to get the environment into my shots, I love showcasing the area that I'm in with my photos and incorporating that. But because of that, sometimes, especially when I'm trying to tell a story of a trip or a day of photography or whatnot, having these close-up shots of details can really enhance what you're trying to say, whether that be details of a certain landmark you're trying to convey, or just the waves of the ocean in your beach image that you're taking, aka like a landscape photo. So I've been trying to really get better at that because they definitely enhance your set of images and just your experience and your day out or whatnot. So in these two photos right here that I'll show as an example, this first one being one that I shot at a basketball game that I was photographing last year in Venice Beach. I thought it'd be cool to try and isolate a basketball going through the net to really show how the ball looked like, and to also get something different instead of just pictures of the players shooting a ball, because you can only get so many of those, right? So the difficult part was getting the brand of the ball Wilson to show in the photo, but luckily it all worked out in the end, and I was able to get it aligned in the image as shown right here. The second photo that I wanted to talk about right here is this image of this person's hand that I took the other day in Nihonbashi in Japan. It's a pretty self-explanatory picture. You can see the details of the man's hand on the pole, along with the sleeve of his business attire and his suit. And again, I took this picture at Nihonbashi during lunchtime, so it pretty much describes the majority of the people out and about in that area at that time and day. So the last idea that I want to discuss in this video is scale. So as I mentioned before, I really like to take advantage of the areas I'm in when I'm photographing them. And in doing so, especially in cities with huge buildings or infrastructure like LA or Tokyo, I love showcasing just how big these places are. So the easiest way to use scale is to incorporate something to compare it to your surroundings essentially. So for these images right here, these examples, it would be the buildings and a human subject. We all know how big humans are. I mean, like I mentioned before, we're humans after all, right? And we don't really differ too much in size, especially in comparison to some of these huge structures. So for the most part, it's pretty easy to imagine just how big some of these places are by comparing them to something everyone knows the size of. In both of these images, starting with the shot I took in downtown LA, you can see the massive buildings behind the person, and that really just lets you know how big these skyscraper buildings are. It's a pretty simple picture compositional wise, but with it you get a pretty good idea of just how tall and how big the surroundings are compared to this person. For this shot I took in the Tokyo International Forum, it's really the same concept. I waited for this person to walk across this platform and be visible enough to see, so when you look at this picture, you can immediately see how massive the inside of the building looks like. A key part of this photo in my eyes is really making sure the person is visible enough so viewers are able to see them immediately, so that way they can understand just how big and how massive the structure is right off the bat. That's another thing I like doing in my photos, but I'll save that for a later video. Anyways, without getting too off topic, I really like using scale when I can in my photos, just to really emphasize how small we really are compared to the rest of the world. Well, that's all I have for this week's video. Please give this video a like and subscribe if you enjoyed. What are some of the things you like to use in your photography? Feel free to leave them down in the comment section below. I'd love to be able to get some new ideas from all of you to use in my own photography. I'm about to go get something to eat because I'm starving, and after that I'm gonna go get some photos. So I'll catch you on the next video. Later.